We're proud that we brew in Philadelphia. We're proud that we brew in yards. And when you make, I say it jokingly, like when I'm sampling, like, look, we make one thing. So if you don't like it, like, it's just my life that depends on it. But it's kind of true. Like, we make one thing. So it has to be like pretty good for us to make sure we stick with this for a while. Or I should say we make one thing currently is what I'll say.
Welcome back to the Brewdat podcast. I'm your host, Richie Tevlin, joined by Evan Blum and the founder, owner of Kenwood, or Serra Brewing. What do you want to call it?
Serra Beer Company.
Serra Beer Company, Matt Serra, not to be confused with the man who knocked out George St. Pierre in the first round.
Yeah.
The UFC.
Yeah.
But welcome. I did not know that we knew each other beforehand, as a couple weeks ago when we set this up. But I guess we used to work together at Victory. We can kind of get into your past a little bit, but we overlapped a little bit there.
Yeah, there's probably a tour that I took some accounts on at one of the facilities. Were you ever at Parksburg or Downingtown?
I was there for a little bit.
It was probably at Parksburg when I would take accounts there to see, the spectacle that Parksburg is. And you were probably either brewing or, talking about the facility itself. So, yeah, I mean, talk about a beautiful place. That Parksburg was awesome. And, you had really well-rounded brewers there that were able to talk about the system, the beer. It was amazing. It was cool to take accounts there. It was great. It was a little far, but
definitely.
I had to go there. I'll never forget the day after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I had to be there on a Monday morning at like 9:00. So I lived on Christian Street and had to drive the hour and a half to Parksburg to meet with a wholesaler at 9 a.m.
I'm sure that you're the only one driving away from the city.
There was not much traffic that day. That's for sure.
Did the wholesaler show up?
It was like a wholesaler party. Like everyone was there. Like it was like 40, 50 people, Victory team, wholesaler team, and we were all meeting, and then we started to drink at 12. I was like, I have to go. So I left by 1:00.
It's free beer after the Super Bowl win.
It was there's one day I didn't want to drink, and it was after the Eagles won the Super Bowl because there was plenty of drinking, that entire night. So that's my Parksburg story. Besides seeing you there.
Nice. Well, it's nice to finally meet you, I guess, again.
Yeah, for sure.
So why you're really here, talk about Kenwood. So I looked at your resume a little bit. You have all the infinity stones of all the sales jobs for beer in the city. You've worked at Penn, Muller, Victory. Am I missing any?
Yeah, Anheuser-Busch.
Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
So you've kind of seen it all. I think you're coming from a different angle. So you own this brewery and you kind of came up through the sales route. So we just saw John. He's been at Philadelphia Brewing his whole career, and you kind of jumped around and kind of got to see all these different aspects.
Yeah, I think so. Right. I know the beer side. I know the brewery side. I don't know it well that I could go to our brewery tomorrow and start brewing beer. Yeah. But, what I know and what I love to do is sell and market beer and sell and market Kenwood now especially. But when you're out of college, my first job was with Muller selling a craft portfolio in Philadelphia. And then from there I went to Anheuser-Busch. And when you're with Anheuser-Busch, they're the largest and best brewery in the world for a reason. They're amazing at everything they do. Marketing, selling, I mean, they give the reps, they treat reps really well. And, you have a budget to spend on really cool things. And, it also helps when they send you to California to see Golden Road. That also helps with the sales incentives. So, after there, I went to Victory for a bit. And Victory is great because you get that, regional brewery feel. They're not massive international yet, but they're not small by any means.
They've worked out a lot of the kinks that some of the smaller people are still working out.
And you realize how much more established they are than, 90% of the breweries that you see in the market right now. So Victory, amazing time there. And I left Victory to start Kenwood. But all experiences that I had from the time I left college to start this were so important because you learn a little bit about each part of the beer world, from wholesale to retail to supplier. And the most important thing you get is relationships, right? I've had relationships now with Kenwood that I've met when I was 20 years old. I was merchandising, hanging signs in Philadelphia, and I still know those guys today.
Yeah, I mean, you probably have the same
10, 12 years later.
For the last, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, because, when businesses are good, they're going to be in business for the next 20 years from now. So I had those relationships when I was 20 that I didn't know I was building. But when I started Kenwood, I could call those guys and, not ask for a favor, but tell them what I was doing. And they were fully supportive from day one. So the most important thing that you get when you start in the beer business is the relationships.
So you say you weren't planning on doing that, but every job you've had straight out of college has been in beer.
Yeah.
Was this Kenwood always the plan?
No, it wasn't, because I loved Anheuser-Busch. I loved working there. It was amazing. So after Victory, when I was with Victory, they were doing a lot of things right. But I also thought, like, I was 27. I was like, I can do this. Like, how hard can it be? So you have a little naivete. You think you can do whatever. So
welcome to my world.
You'll be there soon. But no, in reality though, like, you have to have a little bit of numbness to it. So when I was with Victory, they were marketing and selling and making new products. I remember seeing new products. I was like, that's what I would have done. Or no, that's a bad idea. Mm-hmm. And the things that would fail, you would be like, I knew that was going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you think you know it all.
In your head, like, you see it, you see what's working, and
you think you know it all, and then you see a void in the market for something like this, and you're like, well, I'm not going to tell my company to do this, or they might not even listen to me if I do, so I'm just going to go and do it myself. And again, you start a company, and you're like, how hard can it be? How much money do you need? You figure it out as you go. Then as you go, you realize it's hard. You need a lot of money. You need a lot of supporters. But, you grow and you sell more beer each month, each year, and it becomes a real thing where you go to a store or you go to a tailgate and people are drinking it, and they're like, damn, I forgot. Like, I started that out of, like, my brain, but it's cool. It's cool to see.
When did Kenwood start? Because I feel like, for me, it kind of exploded onto the scene pretty rapidly.
Based on your LinkedIn, I mean, it started 6 months after you left Victory.
Yeah, so we started talking about it in 2019 when I was with Victory. So I quit Victory because me and my brother, Mike, and my first partner, JP,
and your brother's your
John
business
O'Connor.
partner also?
Yeah, and me, John O'Connor, and my brother, Mike. And we have some new investors that we can get into as well. But we talked about it in 2019. And as we were starting the conversations, it was just so unethical to have these conversations as I was with Victory. So I quit Victory because I couldn't, like, in good conscience, start conversations of starting a brewery while working for a
gotta
band.
Put it behind you.
You have to just cut it off.
It's
and
now
stuff.
Kenwood now. Like, you can't be building this as you're trying to build Victory. In your head.
And it didn't feel right. So, like, we started talking about it in 2019. We brewed a little bit in 2019 at Doylestown Brewing Company. They're amazing. It was Joe Modestine. He had Doylestown Brewing Company. And we brew, like, 7-barrel batches. We get, like, 14 kegs, or we get, like, 100 cases. We just sell them to local bars. And it was cool. It wasn't like a thing. We just thought, okay, if we can do this, we have to try now. So then what it came to was March of 2020. Not only did the pandemic start to, take focus, we had our first batch of, real beer and start to try to make this thing a company. So we moved all our production to Mainstay on Delaware Ave. Brian O'Reilly's the brewer there. Amazing brewer, amazing facility. And we were, like, gung-ho about finally starting this company. And our first truck came into our wholesale or our warehouse on March 20th of 2020. And we had all this beer, and we were like, damn, what do we do? Because we didn't have anything. It was our first time, like, going to market with this beer. We didn't have 15-pack set. We had some kegs and some, like, loose 6-packs. And we were like, all right, we'll figure it out. And, 2020 was like, everything that happened that year was just different than everything from the past and everything in the future.
Looking back, like, we saw what happened, but starting from March 2020, you could have never known, how that would have worked
no
out
idea.
As far as how beer was going to be sold, takeaways from bars,
right.
all this other stuff.
So, like, we got rid of the beer that we had. We sold it, and, like, we were officially, like, selling Kenwood. But, I always say our first full year was 2021 because that was when we had packaging in the market. We had a full year of, like, we knew what we're doing, and it wasn't post-pandemic, but it was post-2020 where people were actually, out a little bit more. Mm-hmm. 2021 was our first full year in business, really.
So you said you're a distributor. Do you have a wholesale distributor?
Yeah, our wholesaler in Eastern PA is Stockertown Beverage.
Okay.
They're great. They were like the first to approach us, one of the first to approach us when we were just self-distributing. And, they noticed that we had some stacks in the market and we were selling a decent
When did
amount
that
of beer.
take over? That was in 2021?
2021. No, 2020. Man.
Like how quick was the transition from self-distributing to wholesale?
Beginning of 2021, we were self-D. By the end of 21, we had a wholesale.
Okay.
So we signed with them at the end of 2021. And yeah, they were one of the first to approach us and be like, look, we see what you're doing. They sell more 15 packs than anybody because they sell founders all day. So when we had that kind of consistency with them and selling 15 packs, it was a good fit. And they're big, they sell a lot of beer.
All right, so I know you know what the difference between 12 and 15 pack is, but these have been, big in the market recently. Can you speak a little bit on, why 15 packs are now in the market as opposed to 12 packs?
Yeah, because grocery stores, the largest format you can take out of a grocery store is a 15 pack.
So that's like what, 128 ounces or something that
you're allowed
to sell?
180 ounces.
180 ounces, wherever that number came from, and 12 can packs were less than that. So
Yep.
we're just maximizing consumer value.
Yeah, what you can take out of the grocery store. And you see the Anheuser-Busch's and Muller Coors of the world, they have 15 packs in the PA supermarkets. They don't have that elsewhere because they don't need it.
Yeah.
But in PA supermarkets, it makes a lot of sense. So, as we expand to other markets, we've looked at 12 packs because everywhere else, a 12 pack is just kind of what people get. But for PA, the 15 pack still makes sense. Again,
you only have 15 packs right now.
We have 15 packs. We have wrapped 6 packs packs that are like the cartons. And then we have, just loose 6 packs on the pack deck.
Yeah.
And then kegs. We sell a lot of kegs because, A, it's where Kenwood tastes the best. And B, it's where, you get the most bang for your buck from every level of the wholesale footprint.
Yeah. I saw that. So you have worked at Muller, you have worked at Penn, Anheuser-Busch, but you've always been in the craft segment. Was that kind of weird to work at these larger companies? Like, what do you think the difference was working at Anheuser-Busch for Bud Light as opposed to Anheuser-Busch? And what did you do for the craft segment there?
Yeah, so for Anheuser-Busch, I actually did both. My first role, I was selling the Ultra, Stella, Budweiser, Bud Light.
Yeah.
And that was like a blast. Like, you did activations where you were just like giving out T-shirts and throwing big events. It was so much fun. And then with the craft portfolio, it was about like gaining new placements.
Okay.
Right? Because when Anheuser-Busch was, getting their craft portfolio to the level that they wanted it to, they still needed to get new drafts placements, new package placements. So it was weird because it was like they're the biggest brewer in the world, but not everyone knows their craft portfolio where everyone knows the Bud Light and Budweiser.
Yeah.
So Bud Light and Budweiser, you weren't getting new placements. You were...
Yeah, everybody, if 12-year-olds have heard of Bud Light, you're not...
you can go to any bar and they'll know what Budweiser is. So it was about like growing the brand and seeing how you could get someone to buy from 100 cases to 200 cases. So that was really cool. And again, it was a lot of fun and you had a budget to do really cool and fun things.
Real quick, what were some of the brands like part of that craft portfolio?
It was Golden Road from LA, Devil's Backbone from Virginia.
Yeah.
These people all make amazing beer too, which is crazy because you don't see them as much anymore. Shock Top, believe it or not, which it was brewed like on the package of Shock Top. It said like Michelob Ultra Brewery. So who knows? But it was
give you a stomachache.
It was part of the craft portfolio. Goose Island, which was like their baby. Goose IPA was everywhere, and there was a couple more like
and Goose
Blue
Island
Point.
had the taproom at that point, right?
They did, yeah.
So did you guys do a lot of events there?
No, honestly, I went to Chicago more than I went to the Philadelphia taproom. So they flew us to Chicago like 2 or 3 times because like, I think it still goes like when you learn about a brand like that, it helps to be like in their neighborhood. So, we'd go to Chicago, see their bower room. It was amazing. But to learn about like Goose Island, it helped to be like in Chicago.
For sure.
I think that goes for any...
makes it feel like that, but you don't actually get the feel unless you're actually in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. And that taproom was gorgeous. It's not there anymore, or it is there, but under a different brand. Yeah. But that place was gorgeous, and they did an amazing job. But for whatever reason, I guess it didn't translate well, Goose Island to here. Who knows why? But yeah, Goose Island was the number one. Devil's Backbone, Blue Point, Golden Road, and there's a couple more, but those were the main players.
Were you there when they bought Kona?
No, I wish.
Because growing up, like Kona was my favorite beer, and then
Kona's awesome.
All of a sudden, now it's blown up more than anything I've ever seen. I'm on the Kona train, so.
Dude, Kona Big Wave is great, and I think they've like really just done away with focusing on anything else besides Big Wave because it has this like trajectory that's amazing right now, and the wholesaler does a great job with that. But yeah, they blew up with Big Wave. Would have been nice to win the incentive trip to Hawaii, but they took me to LA, so LA was amazing as well. But yeah, Anheuser-Busch, like a lot of people talk bad about their business and how they are trying to crush craft breweries, I guess. But at the end of the day, they treat their employees well. Like it was an amazing company to work for, and that's where I thought I'd be for a while. And everything happens for a reason, though. That's why now we have Kenwood and hope to make this the next Budweiser.
Definitely.
Is the goal.
So Kenwood came out. We'll talk. I hate talking about names of beers, but can you talk on the name of Kenwood a little bit?
Yeah, it's super simple. Kenwood is the first street I lived on when I was a kid in Delaware County, Drexel Hill. And no one knows or cares about the street name,
but it sounds good and it's memorable.
Yeah,
I know what Kenwood is. It's like easy to remember.
Yeah, it's easy to remember, and I talk about this often. One of my favorite entrepreneurs is Serra. She started Spanx. Yep. She's great, and she always talked about having a hard K sound in your name, like a Kit Kat or McDonald's, Burger King. Makes it more memorable. So we like that, and there's a few names, but it wasn't like this long process of listing like 100 names. It was like, yeah, this works, and then it shortens to Kenny, and the Grab a Kenny tagline was pretty attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's attractive, it's easy, and like, will that be our tagline forever? No, I think they evolve and they grow, but to start to say Grab a Kenny was very easy, and people named Kenny like love it, so you have like this little added attraction to it. But it's an easy tagline, and it shortens Kenwood to Kenny, so you can have some Kennys, have a Kenwood, whatever. But the name, and that's why we have the street signs on the thing. It all. You kind of can dive more into it and be like, everyone has their street sign, everyone has their corner, and like you make everyone's beer.
Yeah,
so
now your tap handles are the street signs.
Yeah,
we just had John on. He had the pencils, and we were talking about that. This is just memorable. Like, I see it. I'm like, that's Kenwood right there.
Yeah. So we just had these newly designed tap handles that got into the market last month.
Nice.
But they're literally street signs, and they say Kenwood Original on each sign. They look amazing. Part of the marketing company that we used to rebrand came up with those, and they took like 11 months to land. But after they were here, it made us very happy. We hope to be able to personalize them as well. So if you're at Kellyanne's, cool. You can put 16th and Spring Garden on the actual tap handle. And when you can do that and customize it, that travels in Philly and New York and Maryland. Like, you can go anywhere with that,
Definitely.
which I think is a cool aspect as we try to make this everyone's beer.
I mean, the mind that you have of kind of like the Kenny, the Kenwood, the colors of this are just like they're catching, but they're like not. You don't get tired of them. It's like, I mean, you clearly know what you're doing. You've clearly picked up some stuff along the way.
Yeah. And so, like, when we started, it was all like we had this idea, and we kind of had a girl that we knew from the neighborhoods. We spent $75 on the original logo. We're like, yeah, this is cool. This works. Let's go to market with it. Had cans designed and all of that. But like, we had the idea and the scheme of everything. With this updated logo and the updated graphics and packaging, we use the company in Pittsburgh that I've mentioned. They worked with Iron City Brewing, and they did an amazing job with the rebrand. I mean, it was awesome. They elevated everything from like, you could tell it was me with like my computer to be like, okay, you can tell it was these guys that do this all day, every day.
It's awesome looking.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to make it. Like, you could see this somewhere in California and be like, it's your everyday beer that I can drink 10 of, and it could be from Cali or it could be from Philly. And that's what I think they did a really nice job with. And again, like, they took this to a level that you need to have some expertise for. So we were super, super happy working with them, and they did a killer job.
Cool. So we've talked about a lot of things. We have not talked about the beer yet. So the beer is
tends
great.
to happen with us. Yeah.
Exactly. Just get rolling. So one, I guess you wanted this was your idea to come up with like a light lager this from the beginning. Are there aspects of it that like you knew you wanted? I mean, it's 4.1%. To me, that stands out. It definitely has. When I taste it, I don't how I'm tasting is like a softer alkaline taste, almost like Michelob Ultra kind of tastes like that, where it's like a softer light beer flavor. I'm not sure, if that's what you're going for, but I like it a lot.
I think so. The only thing that we cared about when we first started was brewing it with rice.
Okay.
And that was a conscious effort because when we had this idea, there was not as many of these craft light lagers on the market.
Yeah.
In recent years, we've seen this segment like explode in a good way. Competition's really good for any company. So when we had this idea, we said, all right, let's brew a craft light lager with rice, like some of the macro beers, but brew it on a craft level scale. So you have the higher quality hops, higher quality everything, right? You're never going to purchase ingredients like a macro brewery. Mm-hmm. So you might as well purchase better ingredients on a small scale and have that kind of familiar taste like a beer that everyone loves.
Yeah, and have like total control over it. You're kind of seeing every batch that goes through.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So we wanted it to be brewed with rice. And like you said, it has like a super crisp, soft taste to it that the drinkability where it was coined by Muller Coors. But if there's no drinkability to a beer like this, there's no use in having.
Definitely.
Right? Because some of these higher ABV IPAs you have, there really isn't drinkability. But when you're paying $10 and you're drinking one or two, it's not that important. But our whole goal for this is volume. And, it's 4.1. We want it to be drinkable. But we always say we want it to be better than any other light lager on the market. Like, that's super, super important. Having a high-quality beer, it's really important. It sounds silly, because a lot of this is a marketing thing, but if the beer isn't good, then you can be the best marketers in the world, but no one's going to come back to it.
Yeah, especially something like this where it's like it's consistently good every time.
Yeah, and that's we attribute a lot of that to Yards where we brew the beer now. They're so consistent. They have a world-class facility there. Like, they test every batch. They have the color. They have the ABV. They have everything there that we know each batch coming out is going to be the same. And when you have a consistent beer that is, it tastes good and it is all the specs you want to hit, that's super important. As I've mentioned, like, there's a lot of breweries out there now, and some aren't great and they have low quality standards. And it's not their fault typically, they just don't have the means of production to make it a high quality brew. So we're super proud that we brew at Yards because they have a high quality standard. And, every batch that comes out of there is super consistent and we can count on it to last long.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's the local, light lager, and it's coming out of the Philadelphia, craft brewery.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I mean, Yards has been around for 30 years now. So they've done something right in the 30 years that they're still here. Because we've all seen breweries close and not make it. So, we're proud that we brew in Philadelphia. We're proud that we brew in Yards. And when you make, I say it jokingly, like when I'm sampling, like, look, we make one thing, so if you don't like it, like, it's just my life that depends on it. But it's kind of true. Like, we make one thing, so it has to be like pretty good for us to make sure we stick with this for a while. Or I should say, we make one thing currently is what I'll say.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. I want to talk about the footprint a little bit. So your footprint is what? You guys are in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware?
Yes. So 28 counties in eastern PA.
Okay.
So Harrisburg, east. All the way up north. And then we're in New Jersey. Technically, we're in the whole state, but we're self-distributing ourselves in New Jersey. So we're just over the bridge now and working our way up the state. South Jersey, we still call East Philly because we know a lot of our drinkers are drinking it in Philadelphia and then going over the bridge and finding their 6-packs and 60-packs. Same clientele. And then we are in Maryland. We started in Baltimore. We have a couple of accounts there, and then we're going to try to grow from Baltimore. We think if we can find markets similar to Philly, like not Pennsylvania, but like Philly with a super dense market with good beer bars and good beer stores, that's what we want to attack first. And Baltimore is a nice market, a lot of really good bars. So if we can do that in Baltimore, travel up North Jersey and hit that.
Very similar to Philly, the bar scene there.
Yeah, it is. And like, this beer, it needs to be found by people that want something different in their light lager, right? Definitely. It's hard to go to a bar with Coors Light, Miller Lite, Bud Light, and then Ultra, Peroni, Modelo. This, because no one's going to drink this of their light option because those drinkers have their light option that they've been drinking forever.
Yeah, and we're seeing, some people are trying to switch off, but like, we have the seltzers, we have like the iced teas, but a lot of people just don't like those, or they're just not.
Yeah, they want beer.
They want beer, but they want something different than.
Yeah, and we always say if we want to be a step above the domestic lights, right? We don't want to be Bud Light or Miller Lite because that's a space you don't want to play in. But there's so many bars that'll never pour one of those beers. So we have so many bars in Philadelphia that we're just the light lager option, and it helps that it's a craft, high quality light lager. Because they're never going to pour something like Bud or Miller, but this fits really nicely into their tap list.
Yeah, I think of something like almost PBR, where PBR it's essentially just a brand that Miller brews at this point, but it's different than what you would think of the four, main light lagers are.
Yeah.
And some people get it because it's, like a little bit different, but this is essentially almost PBR, but it's Philadelphia PBR.
Yeah.
It's not coming from the Midwest.
Yeah, I guess we will say, like, it's weird though, like, because PBR or like Schlitz or Ham, like they're associated with like a low price.
It's low quality. Which like that.
No, but I know what you're saying in that, like, if you can be not the 3 macro domestic brews, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what we say. Like, we don't want to be in that bucket of domestic brews. That's a weird place to be. And our beer is it's a step above that. So if we can be in a place there, you're there, and you let everyone know, like, look, you don't have to carry Miller or Bud Light. You can carry this.
Customers will be just as happy.
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Or more happy. They're drinking Philly. They're drinking something local.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of the company when we start is like we want to find the bars where someone goes in and asks for a Miller Lite. And they're like, no, we don't have Miller Lite, but we have Kenwood. It's like a better version of a Kenny. And that's what we've seen. That's what we've seen in the bars in Philly. Some just take and run with that we've had on tap for a year or 2 years. They don't care for anything that's domestic or macro produced. They want a quality craft light lager, and we fit the bill pretty well.
Download the Let's Rally app to find fun, random things to do in and around Philly. Let's Rally plans your day or night for you. Just tell the app how many people you have at your party and how far you're willing to go. You can also add filters like bars, experiences, and food, and the app will create a plan for you instantly. Unthink today and download Let's Rally.
What's been the hardest challenge of crossing state lines when you guys expanded?
So,
because you're so good with the audience and Philly.
It's interesting. Like, as you get into New Jersey, there's so many drinkers that are drinking in Philly and they live in New Jersey. So we've gotten those, but you have to remember there's so many drinkers in Jersey that do not come to Philly, or they come to Philly, less frequently than we'd hope. So you're really launching a new market, and you have to dive into that market and learn more about Jersey drinkers. Where do they drink? What bars are they at? Where do they shop? Like, what's their favorite pizza place? When we launched Philly, we'd go to like pizza places and give out beer. Even if it's on a bar, we give out free beer to the cool pizza places. So like, you have to do that. You kind of have to start all over in these new territories because you have to learn about the drinker and you have to get in that drinker's hand. So
are there any weird laws in New Jersey? I know they have the weird laws as far as breweries go, but as far as distributing there, is there weird stuff?
No, not that we know of. I mean, it could be getting.
I'll stop asking questions.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it. No, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But it's weird. Like the beer stores in New Jersey, they're more concerned. I shouldn't say beer stores. The liquor stores, they're more concerned about liquor, wine, and then beer is the third option, right? Because all of the margin is made on liquor and wine. So beer, if you get into the sets in New Jersey, they're much smaller than the sets in Philly because they don't need as much beer there. So you tend to pull a little bit better in the New Jersey stores. It's just about getting into those spots.
I mean, you guys are in bars mostly, I guess, but you guys whatnot. Then in beer distributors, what's it called, grocery stores? Like
in Philly?
Yeah.
So we're in Whole Foods, Giant, cool. Acme, McCaffrey's for the McCaffrey's fans, and can't crack Wegmans yet. So we'll get to Wegmans, but all of the other spots, and obviously all the beer distributors, a lot of bars that we're really tight with, and GoPuff. GoPuff's been cool too. But yeah, it's weird. Like the landscape in Philly, when you know it and grow up in it and, you sell into it, it becomes like second nature.
Sure.
But as you go over the bridge and you go to Maryland, it's a different ballgame. There's a lot of different different clientele, different stores, and when beer is the third option, unlike Pennsylvania, it becomes tough, But you find the spots, and you try to grow organically, like we did in Philly, like we're doing in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So what? I guess I know you want to talk about what do you have in the future, but like, is there another expansion in the future? Or you guys are focusing just on kind of the market that you're in right now?
Yeah. So, we want to get to Delaware because it's
right there.
It's right there. It makes sense. There's a million people there. It's not a huge population.
Yeah.
And what controls Delaware is Total Wine. So if you get into Total Wine, you have distribution, right?
Cool.
So we want to go to Delaware. We want to continue to expand Maryland and expand New Jersey. But, we always say, like, we're never super scared to go to any market, right? Like, if someone a wholesaler in New York or a wholesaler in D.C. said they would carry Kenwood, we would go there because we say, like, we're proud that we're brewed in Philly, but we're not a Philly brand, right? It doesn't say Philadelphia beer. It's just,
like you said, it could be anywhere. Kenwood is just like the crossroads of anywhere.
It's a brand that we want to be able to travel. So we definitely want to be Delaware, Maryland, Jersey, PA, and then by the end of the year, if we're in New York and D.C. and Virginia, great, because we think there's room to find the same bars that we're finding in Philly in those places as well.
Nice. So I want to hear this. What is next for Kenwood, Serra Brewing? Like, what's the next beer?
Yeah, so we always say, like, Kenwood has a drinker that we want to attach to. Like, they want to have a few of these. They'll be at a bar and they want to spend on like 4 or 5 pints. We don't ever want to get into making Kenwood a beer that is a 9% hazy IPA because there's a space for that for sure.
It's a very different customer.
Very different customer. So like Kenwood, we know our customer, right? So if we're gonna offshoot Kenwood, or if we're going to make a variant of Kenwood, we want it to be with like a fun flavor that is dependent on drinking, a volume, again, like a 12-pack or a 15.
Yeah.
So something like a Kenwood with lime or a Kenwood Shandy is where we want to be, right? Where it's super attractive and super, fun in that same climate that this is in, where you can have it at the beach or you can have it at a restaurant that, isn't going to serve, low-quality beer. So we're looking down the path of something with like a fruit variant.
Nice. We
think that'd be really fun to put alongside Kenwood. So for the Kenwood name, that's where we want to go. Mm-hmm. And then, there's always the Serra Beer Company name where we can release another brand that is a hazy IPA or something. But that's probably a little further down the road. Make a whole other like section of brands and beers that are a little bit different than the Kenwood drinker. Because, as everyone knows, that hazy IPA segment it's hot. Like there's bars that go through 2 kegs of like 1 hazy IPA per week. So if you can hit that right as well and have this, you're in a really, really good spot.
Definitely. Yeah, but you guys kind of found a lane, and you guys are clearly doing well at it. So kind of expand on that a little bit.
Right. Continuing to try to play in this lane is what we want to do. And again, like Kenwood has so much room to grow. Like. Just scratching the surface. I mean, I guess you always think you're just scratching the surface. Like, we always want to grow and continually evolve this brand. But, when we're at a spot where we think Kenwood is doing well and we can grow while adding another brand, that's what we want to do. Because, again, like if you have just one, it's great and you have this laser focus. But if you have 2 and they're side by side...
They always support each other.
Always. And especially if there's packs stacked up next to each other at retail... If you go to a grocery store and say we have 2, like it's just more attractive.
Definitely.
So we're looking down that road. We really hope to have that in the market this year. But, if we don't and we continue on with Kenwood by itself, don't be surprised because, a laser focus on one beer, it's sometimes it's frustrating, but sometimes it's super rewarding. Like,
I mean, I think
you only made one thing our whole career.
I think there's a lot of people that we'll have on here, they're just straight craft beer people, or you have experience with the Anheuser-Busch, and like you said, it's much different, but it's a lot of fun in its own right. It's like, but you kind of have seen the other side of it, just like focusing on a couple different things and kind of just going all in on it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, this, as I said, the craft light lager space is getting more crowded, but it's still not as crowded as that like IPA or hazy space.
Yeah.
Because that every brewery that exists right now is brewing a hazy IPA, or at least one. And that's okay. Again, it's good. It's a moneymaker. It's a profit margin. It all makes sense. But not a lot of people are bringing their light lager to the market. So there's plenty of breweries that brew a light lager or brew a craft lager, and they'll keep it in their tap room, or they'll use it for in-house stuff, but they won't release it to the market. So there's less competition there right now. And, if you can run and be like that preferred craft lager, preferred craft light lager, you can do some damage in the market and around the...
Yeah, the 9% beers are great, but if you're going to a bar, you can't just teleport home. You have to get home somehow. So, if you drink 3 9% beers, what are you going to drive yourself home? You're going to want something a little bit lower than that.
Or tailgate. I mean,
exactly.
During the Eagles game, you're grabbing one of these.
Yeah. We've honed in on that market because, God, the amount of Miller Lights you'll see in the Eagles tailgate is enough to drown the entire city. So, if you can get into that,
a little bit.
Yeah, you want to be that light lager that's a little different than some of those beers. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about why Miller Lite and Bud Light are 2 of the best selling beers ever.
Yeah.
A lot of it's marketing, a lot of it's the quality, but a lot of it just because it's a drinkable light beer, and and you need that sometimes.
People are looking for an experience the same way they're looking for an experience when they're looking for a unique craft beer. Yeah. Some people are looking for the experience of this light lager that they've had 100 times, and they want to have again, just have the same experience that they had, the last time they went to the bar, the last time they went to a tailgate.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about that a lot, right? Because we don't really do a lot of samplings with this beer. Because it's different than your typical breweries, right?
Yeah.
What we want to do with this is show them a good time when they're drinking the beer,
Definitely.
Right? So they have the experience with it. So if we go to tailgates and if it's the best tailgate they've ever been to, then they're drinking Kenwood, and that's how they remember us. Yep. If they're at a bar or buying rounds during a football game, that's how they're going to remember us, right? So we're about marketing in a little bit of a different way. We focus on the on-premise first. We focus on the bars. We focus on getting the whole beer in people's hands instead of giving them a 2-ounce sample and hoping they like it. Again, that's a great model for a lot of people, but we don't think that's for us. We want to make sure that if you see us at a bar and we buy you a beer, you have a 16-ounce pint, you're watching the Eagles, and you're drinking that for the rest of the night, having a great time. And that's how we want people to remember Kenwood, as the experiential beer, right?
Nice.
Not as the 1 or 2 pints at the end of the
Definitely,
night.
Yeah.
Because that's what you have to do with a beer like this. Mono brand, lifestyle brand, I guess sometimes you could call it, but that's a tricky thing to play with sometimes. But yeah, it's about the experience with Kenwood.
The experience, and also, I mean, what drew me to you guys from the beginning was the marketing. You're obviously the can and the graphics and the tap handles are cool, but your social media is amazing. I mean, you have a champion sweatshirt right now that's amazing.
It's our best seller.
A winter
awesome.
Jacket that was branded. It was
I've
never seen beer merchandise like this before.
Yeah, this thing we you never know. We always joked about we're like a merch company that sold beer something. Because we put things out like this and they'd sell out super
cool.
super
Even if you don't
fast.
drink beer, that's a very cool sweatshirt.
Yeah, well, that's what we said. Our best selling items had nothing to do with Kenwood. It was just it's a champion hood sweatshirt, so people want it. But yeah, we always but in reality we say we're a marketing company that sells beer because if we can't market correctly, then we're nothing. Because the beer is great, but we don't have anywhere to invite people. We don't have a tap room. We can't bring you in to show off. We have one thing, so we can't be your hazy
That's
IPA.
What you say, your experience thing. Your experience is not the tap room. Your experience is going out and actually drinking it, and then seeing it in the marketplace, seeing it out in public, and this would essentially be your tap room.
This is our market,
your market.
And look, trust me, there's 10 times a week I wish we had a tap room to invite people back to, right? But it makes you get creative. It makes you go to your bars, and we tell our retail partners, our best bars, look, we can't send people to our tap room to drink our beer, so we're going to send them here. We're going to have our lunch meeting here. We're going to have our dinner parties here.
Yeah,
so
it'll our tap room.
Yeah, literally what I verbatim what I've said to a lot of bars. So that's also good because when you're spending money and you're supporting these bars, they tend to support you back. And yeah, look, we've gotten burned a few times where you spend a decent amount of money at a partner bar and then they take you off of tap. So that's what you always deal with that. But for the most part, a lot of people in this business, if you have a strong relationship, they're not going to take you off.
Yeah, they recognize, the quality, the uniqueness, the
Yeah,
the
and
consistency. It's all there.
And it pulls and it makes the money. And then when they see guys that started the company there eating lunch or eating dinner,
Definitely.
like they really like
It all
that.
matters.
So, not having a tap room really is unfortunate sometimes, but it allows us to go eat dinner at North Third up the street here and buy beer and hang out and show up.
There's no plans for that in the future?
There's always like a back and forth because because again, like you talk about it all the time. Like, damn, if we had a tap room, this would be great. Because a tap room for us, we would bring in beers around Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
Because with a tap room, you can pour Pennsylvania brewed beers.
Yeah.
So we'd have a Yards Philly Pale Ale, we'd have a Wrong Crowd beer,
Yeah.
we'd have a Mainstay beer. So we'd have a different kind of tap room where we make it a PA kind of place. With a Kenwood branding on it. So there's always talk about it. I think it'd be really, really cool to do. But, as everyone knows, tap rooms and restaurants they're
It's a
expensive.
whole other beast. And the same thing that you're saying, like,
It's
you don't
restaurant
want to
business.
go over to a 9% hazy IPA. You're kind of staying in your lane. Going in the restaurant business is a whole different type of business than the beer sales business.
Yep. You need a restaurateur, you need staff, you need a kitchen, you need all those things.
This
Like
nonstop
that's
project
not-
that constantly needs attention. 24/7.
we started this to be sales, marketing, distribution, and a little bit of beer making.
Yeah.
Really, it's about getting beer to people.
Facilitating the fun.
Yeah, exactly. So once you can, if there's a space to bring people in, like you have to be ready for it. You can't just kind of tiptoe into that.
Definitely.
You have to have like a full plan with a full staff, and a good chef, and those things that.
Yeah, I think who was it? Two Robbers just did that. So they were essentially contract brewing out of, I guess they were probably out of Yards. I'm not sure where they're doing it now, but they just started up their tap room, and it is doing well. But I talked to the owners, and they're like, this is like a whole nother monster that we didn't, I guess.
Yeah, I do.
That would be like that much work, and like it's doing great, but it's a whole another thing.
Yeah, and that place is amazing, and they're in like the best corner of Fishtown you could pick. So like, not only do you have to have a great restaurant and great concept and good style, like you need a good location.
Yep.
So for them, they landed on a great location. But if you end up like not being able to find a good location, or you think you have a good location and it ends up being like kind of a dog, then what do? You're stuck there. You have to market, and then you're marketing a restaurant instead of marketing your beer.
Definitely.
And it's hard to do, man. So kudos to people that have these like booming tap rooms. Like it's very, very cool. But maybe they aren't as strong in their route to market, but they have this awesome tap room. To do both well, as some breweries do, like a Trogs or a Victory, super, super impressive. Like that's two businesses that you have like just pumping out a lot of product. It's really cool to see.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your social media a little bit.
Yeah.
So anything about Kenwood, like it is eye-catching. I mean, I think I told you earlier, but when I was in college or like graduating college, like this, I wish this was around because I know this is the beer I would be bringing back to all my friends. And I think it's just, the look is awesome. There's something about the vibe of it that just really resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, like the consistency of the beer, but also the consistency of the brand. Yeah. It's like all these things are different things, but they all look the same essentially.
Yeah, it's so important. Like if you don't have that consistent branding, and we had a call about this earlier, like if we have a billboard, it needs to be the same as our social media posts, which needs to be the same as our signage at the beer distributor, which needs to be the same as our merchandise, right? Because you see our merchandise and then you see a billboard and you're not connecting the two, then you're just wasting your time, you're wasting your money.
Or like this is low quality, that's high quality. Where's this?
Yeah, right, of course. And like obviously billboards are expensive, so you're gonna spend money on that. But if you're not spending money on your merch and on your signage, then like it just looks like there's no consistency there.
Yeah.
So like with our marketing, again, as I've talked about, the company Top Hat that we worked with to revamp our marketing and our branding was really important because they gave us the assets to do so. As I've said, like when you start this thing and you have social media, it's just like you and your phone, you're hoping to catch some attention. And that's really hard. It goes a little bit, but it gets to a point where everyone knows like, okay, this is just like Matt.
Yeah.
And you have to get out of that stage. So you get to a point where it's, kind of professionalized and you're using people that do it for a living. And when you get to that point, as long as you have the assets and the branding that you can look at your page and look at your grid and it's all lined up, you can have a really strong presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the grid is like you look through it and just like you scroll through it and it's just like even if there's pictures in there, kind of everything blends together. It looks awesome.
Same colors, same consistency, same tone, and that's really important. I harp on it a lot. We work with a PR company who's amazing, Era Agency. They're great, and I talk to her a lot about our tone, like our tone to be consistent because it's the first thing people look at. They see a shirt, they see our beer, it's on tap on a menu, and they look up Kenwood. Maybe they'll Google it, but more likely they're going to go on Instagram or Twitter and look to see do I follow this beer? Do any of my friends follow this beer?
Especially because you're selling this consistent experiential beer.
Right.
A craft brewery that might put out these weird, crazy beers, they want to be different. They're kind of showing off, but you're showing like, I'm giving you the same consistent.
It's one thing. It's always one thing. Yeah. So with that, we try to be consistent. And then like our Twitter is a little bit different. Our Twitter tries to be fun and interactive and
let your hair down a little bit.
Seriously. But I think that's okay. Like Twitter, they're supposed to be
Wild West.
It's still there's supposed to be this back and forth where pretty pictures don't matter, right? Yeah. You're talking to a guy who might not even exist, really. He's just this avatar of like a beer, and you're having a back and forth with them. But it's good. Like we have a lot of interaction on Twitter because we just like are on it and we're constant, we're consistent with it, and we'll sponsor something silly that's on Twitter.
I could also see myself sitting at the end of a bar drinking a Kenwood on Twitter, just firing.
Just looking, scrolling. But Instagram's a little bit different, where you want to be polished up, we want to be buttoned up, you want to show people that look, this is how we look, and we're not this like by the wayside beer company that doesn't know what we're doing. It's like this is professionally done. We have people that cost money that are doing this. Like it's really it's weird as you learn about these avenues. You learn how to kind of dive into them. And then there's Facebook where it's like, you just want to appeal to the 50-year-old mom. And like, if you can do that well, you're going to have a great Facebook crowd. But no, it's really about Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, I guess. But we have not, and we can't dive into TikTok. It's hard.
I feel like I would consider, and I don't want Two Roberts to take this wrong, but I would consider Kenwood an Instagram company and Two Roberts a TikTok company. I don't know why it just kind of sees me like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's weird because you like see TikTok and its popularity, and like you want to be on it. Like, damn, we want to do this. But the worst thing to do is hop on a platform that you don't do well or you don't know how to use.
Know anything about.
Then you just embarrass yourself.
And you look bad. Like the same thing you're doing. Everything that you guys put out is quality. Everything was consistent, good.
We don't want to do that.
Sure that, exactly what you're saying. Like you're uniform across everything.
Yeah, because if you end up putting out TikToks that are like low quality and everyone like can tell that this isn't paid any attention to, like that reflects on the company, because there's a whole demo on TikTok, the Gen Z demo. That's the only time they're going to see you is when they're scrolling TikTok.
Yeah.
So if they see you in a light that is like super weird and like awkward, then that's their first impression of you.
Yeah.
That's a bad place to be. So, you try to stay where you're strong. You try to stay in the avenues that but like you have to evolve, and like, will there be an evolution to another social media company in 5 to 10 years? Maybe, probably. And like, it's scary because like, if you're not on it, you could be missing the boat. But you have to be on it in the correct way. So
you're
it's like
the choir here.
That's
Evan's job right here.
And it's like if you're on it in the right way, then you're in a good spot. But you just try to learn and look at other companies and see who's doing it well, and kind of go from there.
Nice. So I guess you're kind of like the CEO. Like what are the partners kind of?
Yeah. I guess so. I started the company with my brother Mike and another partner John O'Connor.
Yeah.
JP. So we started it, and then at the end of 2022, we had some new partners come on. They're great. They believed in the brand, and they wanted to get involved.
Nice.
So we have 7 partners total now. I'm day-to-day. We have a rep day-to-day, Andrew. And then our partners that are involved, a few of them are, day-to-day-ish, like they're heavily involved, but they have other jobs, so they're not fully involved. Then we have a couple of guys that aren't as much involved, but everyone that has interest in Kenwood, they can tell you where they can buy their closest Kenwood. Like they're all very much invested to it. which is amazing because there's some people and companies that start and have silent partners, and that's great. But we have people that are all heavily invested and interested in how Kenwood performs, not just monetarily, but because it's like what they wanted to be involved in and what they believed in.
Are the other partners, do they have a beer background, or are you the only one with a beer background?
I'm the only one with a corporate beer background.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone else has different backgrounds, some financial, some sales, some a little bit of everything.
But because you're not brewing the beer, it's almost less important, like the sales and everything. Like you have the sales, and then they can kind of run the business aspects.
Yeah, and it's cool because you know, when you start this thing and your head's always down in it, like you tend to just be like on one path. So when our new partners came in, like they kind of open your eyes to a lot of different opportunities and ways to go about business. And you know, as long as you're not stubborn and you listen to people, like a lot of it is really, really good and helpful. So our new partners and even my brother and JP, like, so much good advice, so much good insight, things that I listen to all the time. I usually make the final decisions on a lot of things, and you know, I'm still in the market the most and talking to the wholesalers and reaching out to new markets. But you know, everything that we talk about in our meetings with whomever, like it's all super important because you can know as much as you think you know about the beer business, but sometimes it's not a beer decision; it's a business decision, or it's a sales decision. So, you know, the partners are just integral in anyone's business, but with ours, like we chose really, really good partners and we're super happy with it.
Cool. I mean, you obviously get a lot from your partners, but I think the fact that you have so much experience at all these other, you know, breweries and distributors in the city, I think is very cool. You probably, you know, when you came up, you saw all these different angles, how all the different businesses operated. I'm sure it was very similar, but you kind of pick stuff up as you went. Yeah,
it's so helpful. And like even when I was like 19 or 20, I interned for Evil Genius. Like this was 10. It was like one of their first years in business. I was just an intern for the Luke and Trevor who started it. It was like me and them, like going have like spreadsheets.
I mean, did they go to Villanova or St. Joe's?
They went to Villanova. I went to St. Joe's, but they took me on. So they went to Villanova, and it was like 2 years out of their MBA, and they were starting Evil Genius. And I was just an intern. So we learned a little bit then, but I met up with Luke a month ago to talk about things about wholesalers and new states and distribution. So like you learn a lot, but when you have those connections that you can reach out to across states,
that you made when you were 18,
it's freaking amazing. And you know, conversations that I've had in the last month in trying to find new wholesalers in different states, I've talked to people in, you know, New Jersey and Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Maryland. Like you find about all these people that you just have this Rolodex of because, you know, you start when you're however old and you talk to these people. Then as everyone goes their separate ways, eventually, like it's a small community, you know, like even though, you know, it takes X amount of time to drive to New England, we know people there because we were together in some role. So it's cool. Like you learn a lot, but like you end up connecting with people that you know you had a beer with them once, and now you talk to them a couple times per year. It's pretty cool. It's a really obviously an awesome community to be involved with.
Nice. So I guess any big plans? I mean, you guys are putting out maybe some new flavors and just keep kind of expanding out.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. Now as we turn the calendar, it's interesting, man.
Like where do you see Kenwood end of this year, you know, a couple years from now?
Yeah, like by the end of this year, I really hope we're established in Maryland, New Jersey, all of New Jersey, so north and south and central. Maybe DC, Virginia. Like I hope we have a presence there, not just like one or two spots. That's the goal, to have like, you know, a few other wholesalers setting beer out of just PA.
And I think that's like your brand is so memorable that like when I leave Philadelphia and I see it in these other states, it's like I feel like I'm like still connected to it, and it feels like the brand is like still with me.
It's kind of like how Victory has Golden Monkey, right? Like if you
resonates with everybody all over the country.
And that's a beer that can go international if they wanted to. So right, like if we want to try to do that, we want to go to more states, we want to go to more cities. You like the population density of places like Philly, you can go there almost anywhere. So by the end of the year, that's the goal, to have a few more wholesalers on board that we can, you know, expand with. And then, we just want to keep growing from there. Hopefully we have a new variant that we can push out as well. And, we want to be in more bars in Philly still. Like, we're in a lot of bars. We're in a lot of beer stores. We're in a lot of grocery stores. But, like, we want to be, the goal from day one was to be like how Budweiser is to St. Louis. We want to be like that to Philadelphia. If you ever go to St. Louis, there's not much there. There's the Arch, and then there's Anheuser-Busch. Paint the town red. Like, it's crazy.
There's town blue.
Yeah, there's Budweiser everywhere. Every bar has band. Like, it's amazing to see what they've done. They had a 200-year head start, whatever. But like, that's what we want to be. We want to own our home market, because if you can't own your home market and you're just focusing on other markets, then you're gonna lose here eventually.
Yeah, if you focus on your home market, everything else will
kind of falls in place. Yeah, so we want every bar, the goal is every bar in Philly to have Kenwood. And we think we're in a good spot now where we can get on tap at most bars in Philly, and it's going to pull well. It's not going to sit on a draft line and not pull. Like, when you first start, you worry about that, right? Because
there's a lot of
no one knows your beer.
A lot of the population would drink, and most people are going to be drinking this beer.
Yeah. And again, if it's brewed in Philly, people will drink it. So we want to grow Philly, like, to the point where you can't go a neighborhood and not have a few bars with Kenwood. We want to go to new states, go to new towns, go to new cities, and hopefully have a variant or two out by the end of the year. Nice. So it's some lofty goals, and it's going to take a lot of work, but you don't get in this to be lazy. You get in this to just keep going. So that's a point.
My vote's for lime. Bud Light Lime is. I love Bud Light Lime. I've said it before.
So many people do. It's so. I don't. But like, there is this like huge market for lime beers, and we saw a lot of them last summer do really well.
Yeah, so that's my vote. But
so when Kenwood Lime comes out, come back here.
We'll have the official, press release here in this thing. Yeah, look, lime has a space, and doesn't matter what I like. It matters what the market likes. That's what's more important. But obviously, I do love Kenwood.
So do I. So I guess where can we find you guys online? So at Kenwood Beer.
At Kenwood Beer on social. Kenwoodbeer.com for our website.
Has the beer finder on there.
Has the Kenny finder, always updated, and
merch shop there.
Merch, Kenny finder,
stuff. This stuff was
everything.
Incredible.
We can spare a couple shirts to you guys. Should have had them with me tonight. And then find us at your local beer distributor, grocery store, favorite bar. We always say if they don't have Kenny, ask for it, and they will love you even more. Nice. So, yes. But Kenwoodbeer.com and at Kenwood Beer.
Awesome. And then you can find us at Brewdat and